Hi, this is Talking Stocks by hackingstocks.com. Um, Nothing in the show should be viewed as investment advice. Um, Everything is for entertainment purposes only. I just wanted to do a quick one and look at some of the things that I'm looking at. Um, and so Uh, First, let's talk some of my holdings and just see how some of the things are doing. Some things that look pretty bad at the moment. Um, Open door. If you look at the technicals, it doesn't look good on pretty much any measure: 5 day, 10 day, 20 day, etc. Um, yeah, it hasn't been looking good. It's a small position for me at the moment. I'm looking for it to turn around, and I think they're gonna need to start reporting like good numbers for that to happen. And so I'm definitely keenly looking for that. I do think that they have a lot of potential, but at the moment, yeah, not looking good. And Similar situation for vroom. Um, I think it's in the used car space right now. It's like an interesting time. I mean, on the one hand, demand is like very high, but on the other hand, good luck trying to get your hands on supply. Um, it is a interesting time. However, I also am a big owner of Carvana, and I have been for quite some time. But it's really not much better, even on shorter time scales. Um, I don't know. They just managed to pull it out somehow. Um, I think probably they're a little bit more aggressive than Varoom, which maybe in the long run is not a good thing. Um, but uh, Yeah, I think they're also having challenges, though. I mean, again, while demand is extremely strong, supply is difficult. Um, yeah, so those are a couple that aren't doing so great. Um, Bitcoin has been a holding for me for some time, and it's been holding up really well, even with tech pulling back. We'll see some more stocks in the tech space, which are kind of, um, you know, have pulled back. But Bitcoin has danced to its own beat and remains strong. I think as long as we continue to print money, and as long as it continues to have its halving cycles and so forth, I think it's a good holding, and I'm going to continue to hold it. Yeah. Um, Square, uh, it's been strong for quite some time, and it's kind of pulled back, but is now looking like it could gap fill. Now, obviously, this is not a chart. I'm just looking at the 5 day, the 10 day, these sort of things. But Even here, I can tell that this is basically kind of like a gap fill because uh, it's started pulling, going back up, but there's still uh, spaces that it's hit before that it hasn't yet hit. So from a technicals, it's kind of in a good space. From a business perspective, I think they have the crypto side that's really helping them out. Obviously, as we just saw with the Bitcoin, uh, and Cash Card is a beast. And it's With this new music venture, that's an interesting space. I think they're kind of looking for to do something with sort of NFT like to help artists monetize music better, which is a good idea. So I think they're being quite innovative, and finding these ideas. The crypto was a new, relatively new idea for them. A cash app is relatively new for them. That's not their original business. Um, and you would have thought with the pandemic and small business taking a huge hit, that they'd be, that they would have had problems because, small business is a huge part of their business for them. But um, they just found new businesses and new ideas. And yeah, I think Jack needs to get a lot of credit for, going into these ideas and seeing these things early and going in and making good businesses out of them. So while I'm sure it is not cheap by regular measures at the moment, I think when I entered into it, it was cheap from certain metrics, but relatively speaking. But certainly, I mean, at the moment, it's probably not that cheap. But I mean, they just continue to find ways to grow the business, and that's what's driving the results. Um, Roku, another holding for me. Also, I don't really have any strong opinions at the moment. I mean, I put it on here for, it looks like another one where it could gap fill. I think again, I mean, this is another business that's just delivering. I mean, it's basically the living room looks like uh, two companies are vying for it at the moment. I mean, there's a number that are trying, but um, when you look at the TV software effectively market, I think it's called over the top or whatever they're calling it. Um, it's Roku and Amazon basically. I mean, those are the two big players. I mean, and Google's trying with the Chromecast, and Apple TV has been trying for a long time with Apple TV, but the two main players are Roku and Amazon, and it's an extremely valuable market. I mean, and that's why, I mean, Roku is definitely not cheap at the moment, and I'm not adding, but at the same time, I'm not selling either. It can continue to perform for a long, long time as long as it keeps being the number one or number two player in the space. And I think with Amazon, I think some manufacturers are going to have issues putting Amazon in, just because Amazon competes in so many different parts of the business, and also Amazon has a history of going after companies that they work with. So I think some manufacturers are going to continue to choose Roku, and so that bodes well for Roku. Um, and Another one that I'm looking at that I do think has a lot of potential, and where I have been adding recently, is Angi. Now it's underperformed the S&P. You could see it here. The 5 versus the 600 is how I like to look at it. The S&P has been stronger than Angi over that kind of time frame, and I I do think Angie has historically, left a lot to be desired in the way that they've executed. But I do think that it's got a lot of potential. I mean, it is kind of a leader in the space, right? I mean, there's not real who's a competitor here. I mean, Google is a competitor if you want to advertise, but that's not really what Angie's doing. I mean, what they're doing is two parts of the business. The historical main part is, you ask for a service, and then they, give leads to companies that are looking to sell that type of service, right? In reference to the home, right? So selling leads, that's been the historical part, and now they're getting into fixed price, right? Google's not really compete. Google, Yelp, they're not really competing on fixed price. Leads, even not really. Google is more like you pay for the ads, right? It kind of is similar to a lead. You pay for the ad, you get the inbound call. That's a lead. That's like a hot lead, basically, effectively. So on the leads perspective, you could look at Google and Yelp as competitors. At fixed price, I don't think really there's anybody else with a big name. I think if you do a lot of these searches, if you just search for a lot of these home services, Angie tends to be number one that pops up. And I think the issues are, can they get the supply? But I think, especially with these fixed price, I mean, you could get a lot of part timers even. I mean, historically with the leads, and I've written this up on my website, so I don't want to get into the whole thesis. I mean, historically, with leads, you needed to be dedicated. You needed to have basically a sales organization. Leads. You still have to sell leads, right? Lead is not you got the job and you go and do it. A lead is you got to sell that lead, and then you have the job and then you go and do it. So you couldn't really have these part-timers or people doing it as a side hustle or anything of that nature. But when you start selling fixed price, you can get some of those people, and that adds to supply. And then and then you get the network effect. So the bigger you get, the more supply comes your way, the more demand comes your way. So I do think that this is an opportunity for them, I and they haven't been performing, which is in a sense good because there's a lot of opportunity for them to perform, right? In a sense, it's bad because if they were going to perform, why haven't they performed so far? But if you look at it, they have been adding new things, like fixed price is new. I think the way that they're marketing it is a little bit new. I think also they're doing a much better job on checking on leads. And historically, contractors have complained a lot that that they were basically getting fake leads and all of this. And I think if you try the service now, that they're doing a much better job verifying these leads. So I think they're in a position to execute, and if they execute, if you look at the technicals and if you look at the fact that they've underperformed the S&P, they're in a good spot to perform well for the shareholder. Yeah, for the first shot here, I just wanted to keep it short and test out how this all works, and hopefully whoever listens to this likes it. Thanks.